Imagine standing before a mirror that reflects not your face, but the true nature of every substance that enters your body. Throughout history, humanity has sought escape and transcendence through various means, but one substance occupies a peculiar position in our collective consciousness: alcohol. Celebrated in festivities, used as medicine in ancient times, transformed into a symbol of pleasure and release, few pause to question its deeper nature. But what happens when we stop observing alcohol from the perspective of entertainment and social convention, and instead examine it through the lens of spiritual reality? What if the very word we use for it carries a mystical warning encoded within its etymology? The term Al-Kuhul, from which the English word alcohol originates, emerges from medieval Arabic alchemical texts, where it referred to a black powder used in esoteric transmutation practices. But hidden within this historical reference lies something far more profound. The ancient texts suggest its name carries a meaning related to the separation of spirit from body, a fragmentation that ironically mirrors what occurs on the spiritual level when someone consumes this substance. This is not coincidence. The ancients understood something that modern consciousness has forgotten: that all matter carries vibration, all substances carry intention, and nothing enters the human system without consequence. The exploration before us descends into territory that challenges conventional understanding. We will examine alcohol not as a beverage, but as an alchemical agent that affects the very fabric of your energetic being. We will journey through ancient mystical texts, esoteric teachings, and the accumulated wisdom of traditions separated by continents and centuries, all pointing toward the same truth: that alcohol disrupts the sacred architecture of human consciousness. More importantly, we will discover that this knowledge has been deliberately obscured, hidden within layers of cultural acceptance and social normalization, waiting for those brave enough to see clearly. This revelation has the power to transform your relationship with consciousness itself, and once understood, it cannot be unknown. Throughout human civilization, alcohol has occupied an ambiguous position, appearing simultaneously as a sacred elixir in rituals and as a poison that devours the spirit. Yet beneath this apparent contradiction lies a truth that great spiritual traditions have always known. Alcohol is not simply a beverage. It is an alchemical agent, a transformative force, operating on planes far beyond the physical body. The word itself carries hidden knowledge. In medieval Arabian alchemical texts, Al-Kuhul referred to a refined black powder used in esoteric transmutation, a substance potent enough to separate and dissolve the essential components of matter. The alchemists understood that certain materials possessed the power to break apart cohesion, to fragment what was unified. Is it coincidence that this exact principle operates when alcohol enters the human system? That it fragments consciousness, separates the soul from its anchoring in the body, and dissolves barriers, protecting the psyche from lower vibrations? The Quran offers perhaps the starkest warning, describing alcohol as an instrument of Satan, designed to seduce humanity away from truth and divine connection. This reflects deep esoteric understanding that this substance literally weakens human will and opens channels through which lower forces influence behavior. Christianity, while acknowledging wine in sacred contexts, has traditionally warned against intoxication as loss of control over the soul and a gateway to spiritual darkness. Even in shamanic traditions, where certain sacred plants are used with profound spiritual intention and protection, alcohol remains conspicuously absent from genuine healing rituals. Indigenous wisdom keepers have long taught that alcohol opens portals to entities of low vibration, doors that should only be opened by someone with genuine spiritual mastery and protection. What emerges from this convergence of global wisdom traditions is undeniable. Alcohol is not merely a substance affecting body and mind. It is a spiritual corrosive, a frequency disruptor, a tool of fragmentation operating across multiple dimensions of human consciousness. The ancient alchemists knew this. The mystics knew this. The spiritual masters across every tradition knew this. They encoded these warnings in their teachings, their scriptures, their rituals, waiting for those with eyes to see the truth beneath cultural acceptance. In the study of true spirituality, everything in the universe possesses a vibrational frequency, an energetic signature that determines its nature and influence. Elevated emotions like love, gratitude, and profound peace resonate at high frequencies, while fear, rage, and attachment vibrate at lower, denser levels. Meditation, fasting, and connection with nature are practices that elevate the vibration of the being, while consumption of intoxicating substances systematically reduces it. Alcohol, in its essence, decelerates the vibrational frequency of the human energy field significantly. This is why when a person drinks excessively, their aura weakens dramatically, leaving their astral body exposed and vulnerable to external influences. This descent into lower vibration creates a state where dense emotions, sadness, anger, confusion, seize control, pulling the person away from their spiritual center. Ancient mystical traditions taught that the human being possesses multiple subtle bodies beyond the physical form. Among these, the astral body serves as the vehicle of consciousness in non-physical realms and higher dimensions. When someone consumes alcohol in large quantities, their astral body becomes unstable and fractured, facilitating intrusion of external energies from lower planes. Certain entities of the lower astral, beings that feed on the energy of dense emotions and suffering, find in states of intoxication a gateway to influence the individual's psyche and behavior. This explains why, after a night of excess, many people experience emptiness, depression, or inexplicable anguish, as if something foreign has attached itself to their energy field. Another profound consequence is disconnection from the higher self, the elevated and wise aspect of consciousness that guides us. When the physical body is intoxicated, the mind becomes clouded, and the inner voice becomes inaudible. This state of unconsciousness prevents introspection, blocks intuition, and weakens connection with the divine. The third eye, ajna, seat of intuition and spiritual vision, becomes opaque and disconnected. The solar plexus, manipura, which governs will and self-discipline, weakens, making the person prone to losing control over their actions and impulses. The throat chakra, vishuddha, responsible for truth and authentic communication, distorts, causing people under alcohol's influence to speak words they later deeply regret. By disconnecting from the higher self, we lose the capacity to act from wisdom and discernment, leaving ourselves at the mercy of unconscious impulses, hidden desires, and fragmented patterns. This is the spiritual tragedy that few understand. We believe we are choosing freedom when we are actually choosing fragmentation and spiritual imprisonment. From a perspective rooted in karmic law, every action taken by human consciousness carries consequence in the spiritual evolution of the soul. If alcohol leads us to act without control, without awareness, without connection to our higher self, we generate karma that must eventually be balanced and resolved. This is not punishment from an external deity, but rather the natural law of cause and effect, operating at the level of consciousness itself. Actions taken in states of intoxication create ripples that extend far beyond the moment of inebriation, touching not only our own spiritual development, but also the souls of others involved in those actions. Consider the weight of what occurs when alcohol removes the filters of consciousness. A promise broken under the influence carries karmic consequence. Words spoken in anger or cruelty, while intoxicated, create bonds, sometimes called soul contracts, that must be resolved in this life or in future incarnations. Physical aggression committed while drunk generates karmic debt that the soul must carry forward. These are not abstract concepts, but energetic realities that shape the trajectory of the soul's evolution. The being who has harmed another while intoxicated carries that imprint in their energy field until it is resolved through conscious acknowledgement, genuine remorse, and spiritual restitution. The abuse of alcohol over extended periods can become what might be called a karmic prison, a cycle of self-destruction and spiritual disconnection that repeats itself across years or even lifetimes. Many spiritual teachers speak of souls trapped in patterns, repeating the same destructive behaviors generation after generation, unable to break free because they remain unconscious of the cycle itself. Alcoholism, viewed through this lens, is not merely a physical addiction or psychological disorder, though it is those things. It is a spiritual entanglement, a karmic knot that binds the soul to lower frequencies and prevents advancement on the path of awakening. In the vision of karma taught by the ancients, the consumption of alcohol is not simply a personal indulgence. It is an action that reverberates through the collective consciousness, that creates obligations and debts, that can delay spiritual evolution not just for one incarnation, but across multiple lifetimes. The soul that repeatedly chooses intoxication over consciousness makes a choice that has consequences far deeper than a simple hangover. It chooses fragmentation over integration, illusion over truth, descent over ascension. And that choice, made repeatedly, shapes the destiny of the soul itself. Esoteric traditions have long taught a fundamental truth. The reality we experience is not an objective external fact, but a reflection of our internal state of consciousness. The clarity of our mind determines what we can see and understand about the world. When consciousness is clear and awake, we perceive with lucidity and discern the patterns of energy that govern existence. However, alcohol introduces a fog into this perception, making the mind susceptible to false interpretations and deceptions. Under alcohol's influence, consciousness becomes fragmented and vulnerable to manipulation. The individual loses the capacity to distinguish between what is real and what is illusion, between authentic intuition and the whispers of lower entities seeking to influence behavior. In alchemical understanding, this confusion is viewed as self-deception that distances the human being from their true purpose and spiritual mission. The person believes they see clearly, when in fact, they have descended into fog, where their own shadows appear as external reality. The mystics have described spiritual awakening as the gradual dissolution of veils that obscure truth. When a person genuinely seeks awakening, they must cultivate a clear mind, a pure heart, and a strong spirit. Yet alcohol operates in the opposite direction. With each drink, additional veils are constructed. The filters of perception become more distorted. the connection to universal wisdom becomes more attenuated. The distance between individual consciousness and the higher self grows wider. One of the most profound esoteric concepts is what the ancients called soul fragmentation. Traumatic experiences, acts committed in unconsciousness, and decisions that contradict the inner voice can cause fractures in the unified field of being. When someone drinks to excess, they often experience blackouts, moments of complete amnesia where consciousness simply ceases. These represent actual tears in the energetic fabric, temporary ruptures in the continuity of consciousness itself. Each episode of intoxication weakens further the coherence that holds the soul together as an integrated whole. Ancient cultures understood this deeply. Shamans and mystics spoke of recovering soul parts as an essential healing practice. Those who have abused alcohol for years often describe overwhelming emptiness, as if they have lost pieces of themselves. From the esoteric perspective, this is not metaphor. It is actual energetic reality, requiring conscious reintegration. The fragmented soul must be gathered back together through spiritual discipline, intention, and guidance of wisdom. This is the hidden tragedy of alcohol. Not merely the immediate intoxication, but the long-term fragmentation of the very essence that makes us human. Until this point, we have explored the profound consequences of alcohol, the fragmentation of the soul, the distortion of perception, the attraction of lower energies, and the disconnection from the higher self. Yet the wisdom of esoteric traditions does not merely warn of dangers, it also provides the tools for healing and restoration. The journey does not end in despair or condemnation. It opens toward redemption, toward the recovery of clarity, toward the reclamation of spiritual power that has been dispersed and diminished. The ancient traditions understood something essential. The human being possesses an innate capacity for self-healing and transformation. No damage is permanent. No fragmentation is beyond repair. No disconnection from the divine is irreversible. This is the true message of spiritual teaching, not that we are trapped in our mistakes, but that we possess within ourselves the power to transcend them through conscious intention and dedicated practice. The path of restoration begins with purification of the physical body, the vessel through which consciousness operates. Fasting allows the body to eliminate accumulated toxins and restore its natural balance. Herbal preparations like milk thistle, dandelion, and nettle support the liver, the organ most affected by alcohol. Water exposed to sunlight in blue glass helps recharge vital energy and cleanse energetic imprints. These are not superstitions, but practices grounded in understanding that the physical and energetic bodies are intimately connected. Reconnection with the higher self requires sincere prayer, devotion, and work with sacred symbols like the flower of life. Visualization of golden light, connecting the crown chakra to infinity, restores the severed connection with the divine. These practices rebuild the bridge between individual consciousness and cosmic consciousness. Finally, the deepest work involves changing one's relationship with consciousness itself. Powerful affirmations reprogram the subconscious mind. Surrounding oneself with spiritually conscious people and spaces sustains the transformation. Energy work and transpersonal psychology address the root causes of seeking escape through intoxication. The true transformation is not merely stopping the consumption of alcohol. It is the recovery of sovereignty over consciousness, the restoration of wholeness to the fragmented soul, and the alignment of the individual will with the will of the higher self. This is the real awakening, the return to power, to clarity, to the infinite potential that has always resided within.